They're selling you all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
You'll do nothing. You'll do nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you'll do nothing. You'll do fucking nothing. Not one of you will do nothing.
I'll tell you what, bro. I was out there. I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I'm gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Next year, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Any of you radio personalities think you want smoke? Call me Mr. Chimney. I want smoke.
Yes. What is up, MCR family? Another daily edition of the show live on YouTube, obviously podcast form, Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, etc. Smash the like button, share the show, subscribe. It's Mixed Combat Radio. I am Matt, the Hipster Hunter. Obviously, we're here to discuss UFC on ESPN, the real first main event of the new deal. Francis Ngannou versus Cain Velasquez, the comeback of the former champion himself, plus Bellator's 2 events this weekend, including Matt Mitrione versus Sergey Kharitonov. And, of course, the real fight, I think, that, similar to last weekend, where we had, before the main event fell out, Whitaker-Gastelum was obviously the best fight probably of the weekend. But the real main event, and the people's main event, was Adesanya versus Silva. The real people's main event this weekend, Michael Venom Page versus Paul Daly. Can always discuss that one. Plus, a litany of news and topics to get to in the MMA world. But, of course, I'm joined, as usual, on the MMA shows by the illustrious Mr. Fugatti. Fugatti, how are you doing today on this fine evening, night, morning, wherever you are in the world?
Doing great, man. It's 10 p.m. Kiddo's asleep. Wife's winding down. We get to talk some fighting. Let's do this.
Yes. How's your Valentine's Day, by the way?
It was good, bro. Other than dropped $100 on a freaking baller flower bouquet. It was so nice, man.
But what you said unfortunate. Why is it unfortunate? I mean, I know why, but the listeners don't. So why was it so unfortunate that you spent $100 on this bouquet for your wife, which I assume was lovely? I bet she loved it, right?
She did, except for I got a text saying, "Was this for your other girlfriend?" because I spelled her name wrong. So it was like,
no, you can't be sending the side chick's name on the flowers with your wife. You can't be doing that, Foo. Come on, you know that.
I know. Eubanks.
Yeah, the fact that I forgot it was that part, that the last name was Eubanks. I'm like, man, obviously Phil was watching some Chris Eubank highlight reel or something right beforehand. He was dreaming of that James DeGale fight, and how it's going to be UK pay-per-view. But by digressing, Rob Summer sleeping, and, he's hearing boxing talk, and he's going to wake up instinctually. But let's get to, obviously, the fight this weekend, or say the big card this weekend, which is the UFC card. Because top to bottom, I should say, the main card, especially plus the little prelim main event as they do in the UFC cards. Like, the top 6 or 7 fights on this event are just fantastic, in my opinion. Let me go to it now just so I can bring it up. You have Jimmy Rivera versus Aljamain Sterling, fantastic fight. Andre Fili versus Miles Jury, fantastic fight. Brian Barberena versus Vicente Luque, fantastic fight. Alex Caceres versus Kron Gracie, ooh, I love that one. Cynthia Cavallo versus Courtney Casey, fantastic, fun fight in my opinion. James Vick versus Paul Felder, a fight of two guys that look like cousins from the Midwest, yes, give me that. And obviously the main event, which has so many different aspects I wanted to sort of tackle, because obviously it's not a run-of-the-mill heavyweight main event. It's the return of Cain Velasquez off of a nearly 3-year layoff. A guy that was once touted as the greatest heavyweight in the world, not just in his time, but all time. Like, people were putting that on Cain at a very early point in his career. I mean, he's still only, 14-2. He's only had 16 fights in his pro career. But we're talking about this guy like he's a faded veteran. Just a very odd dynamic to this. And on top of that, we have Francis Ngannou, who was a meteoric rising heavyweight star just a year or two ago. And then the loss to Stipe Miocic, the preceding Dana White bashing of Francis Ngannou, I think hurt his stock a lot. And then the Derek Lewis absolute stinker, which I refuse to talk about on this show or to really think about or watch in any way because it was that bad. And then he puts on the 30-second some-odd knockout against Curtis Blades, the one guy to make him go to the decision. Just a real interesting fight on, again, a number of levels. Fu, let me get your sort of preliminary thoughts, your sort of overall thoughts about this card, the main event in particular. I know you are obviously more of a casual, and that's okay. I like that you are that way. A guy like Cain Velasquez was big near a decade ago, really. Does that name register in your mind in any way? Are you instantly now intrigued because Cain Velasquez, or are you more of in research mode because it's a guy that hasn't fought in 3 years? It's a guy that was, again, big a decade ago. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, definitely in research mode. I remember him, but you kind of set me on, his wars with
Junior Dos Santos.
Junior Dos Santos, yeah. And those were great fights, So maybe the first one ended quickly, but the other ones were wars, So I think the whole card is great. It looks like we're gonna have a lot of fun fights, a lot of kind of like maybe like this is the fight that'll determine how far some of these fighters can go. Like stylistically,
a lot of barometer fights, like off the bat, like James Vick, Paul Felder. The loser of that fight is not going to be a relevant player in their division for a long time, in my opinion. Cynthia Cavallo, Courtney Casey, same aspect. Kron Gracie, I mean, they're throwing him in here with in all aspects of journeyman in Alex, Bruce Leroy Caceres, but he's still a journeyman that's been in the UFC his entire career. That matters,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was kind of like a gatekeeper for Covington, a couple other guys, right?
No.
Wasn't he?
No, not Barbarino. No. Caceres, not Barbarino. Caceres.
Gotcha. Caceres.
Barbarino is not as, I wouldn't say a journeyman. Barbarino is much more of a like top 30 guy, right? Like on Tapology, they have him ranked at like number 31, right? For example.
Gotcha.
But Barbarino, Vicente Luque, like that's a good fight because I think the winner of that fight probably gets a relevant name next, and the loser gets way back in the shuffle, if not maybe cut. Andre Fili versus Miles Jury. Both these guys were, again, big nearly a decade ago. Andre Fili was a rising prospect out of Team Alpha Male. A lot of character, a lot of personality, and just kept losing. Miles Jury, a guy that had a lot of personality, beat some good names at some good relative points in their career, and then just stumbled, has been inactive for a lot of reasons. Jimmy Rivera versus Aljamain Sterling, a fight that is pushed down way deep in the card, but honestly is probably the closest fight to where you can say the winner of this might get a title shot next, or they're closer to a title shot. Like maybe Cain, Francis Ngannou winner gets a title shot against Daniel Cormier, but that would be if it's Francis Ngannou because Cain's not going to fight his teammate. Those guys are BFFs, like that's just not going to happen. But Jimmy Rivera, Aljamain Sterling, the winner of that is right behind Marlon Moraes for TJ Dillashaw's belt. So a lot of fun fights, a lot of intriguing matchups. And quickly, I do want to sort of swing back to Cain and just the history and the context of this fight because, Cain Velasquez is a guy that 2 years ago, give or take, he was not allowed to get a license via Nevada to fight. They deemed him not of having like major health concerns and stuff like that. And like Cain Velasquez went out and was very very vocal about having to take like CBD and like different sort of like herbal stuff to fix his ailments and having massive physical issues. And this is a guy that his entire game is predicated not only on his vast technical acumen in both grappling and striking, but also that cardio, that tank, the athleticism behind that. Even though you look at him and say, oh, he's not the biggest athlete, Cain Velasquez in his prime was one of the best athletes heavyweight division has ever seen. Facts. So now that he is a diminished version of himself, are we going to see a Cain that is able to compete with Francis Ngannou? Because again, stylistically, or I should say, technically speaking, this is an easy fight to call in the main event, right? I mean, Cain is far and away the kryptonite to Ngannou. We saw what a guy with really good boxing and fantastic wrestling transitions, like a Stipe Miocic, do to Ngannou. Absolutely dominate him. And Cain in this prime, I think, is a far better version than Stipe Miocic. I think his boxing's better. I think his head movement's better. I think his wrestling's better. I think his just the sort of intangible. He's meaner than Stipe. Like Cain was a mean guy at his reign, at his top. Like what he did to Junior Dos Santos for 10 rounds was vicious. I don't think Ngannou could ever take that sort of punishment. However, again, the caveat of this is a 3-year layoff. Cain was 2 years ago deemed not healthy enough to compete in this sport. Think about how hard that is, Fu. We've seen them give McGregor a license to fight Mayweather. We've seen them give CM Punk a license to fight in the UFC. Like, we've seen Dada 3000 fight Kimbo Slice, and they get a license. So the fact that Cain Velasquez, coming off of a loss, and all of a sudden is deeming too unhealthy to compete, that's a major red flag. I'm yet to sort of give my pick. I'm gonna hedge it because I want to go to you. I want to hear your breakdown on this fight, sort of what your thoughts about this matchup in particular.
I think it's a tough one, right? Because you never know how someone's going to return to the ring, or the octagon. So it's like it's one of these fights where if Cain Velasquez is even, I would say like maybe 80% of the fighter he was at his top, Ngannou's never really been that consistent, so I think he'll win. But the other thing that I think about is in the first Dos Santos fight, he knocked him out within like 60 seconds or less than, I think. Yeah. It was right around 60 something seconds.
It was 63 seconds, I want to say.
Yeah. So, and Ngannou has that power and has,
And also, to just sort of stitch back to that fight, the excuse or the reasoning behind Cain, for Cain for losing that fight was, hey, I came into that fight with a torn ACL. I came into that fight not healthy. So, again, to put in that context, if he comes in this fight not healthy, it's a dangerous opponent to do that against. It's not that Ngannou, I think, can really sprawl and brawl Cain Velasquez, but let's say Cain's knees aren't there. Let's say he really can't shoot a 100% live takedown in a fight like he used to. That's a big problem. On top of that, I don't think Ngannou has the technical boxing acumen that even like a Richard Verdum had, and how like Verdum was able to really outbox Cain Velasquez, which was surprising. He was able to out-jab him, because Cain's entire defensive game is just a bob and weave, basically. Like an old school, very rudimentary James Toney. Like it just bobbing the head back and forth off that center line, and it's really predictable. So you just sort of pump out some jabs, some feints, get him moving, and you can read it like a speed bag or like a double end bag. I don't think Ngannou is built like that yet. I don't think he has the skill yet for that. So I'll be honest, I'm picking Cain Velasquez to win this. Mainly because I'm really hoping, I'm hedging all of my bet on, I'm hoping that he's back. Because the division with Cain Velasquez in it is an interesting heavyweight division. It breathes some new life back into it. Because really there isn't a clear number one guy. Let's be honest, right? Like if even Francis wins this fight, I think it'd be a lot. We're gonna chalk it up to Cain Velasquez being who he is right now. So it's not like we're thinking, oh, Daniel Cormier is gonna lose to Ngannou. No, I don't think any of us think that, right? Even if Ngannou wins this fight, let's be honest, you have to win it in a real impressive fashion where we see Cain is 100% back, but Ngannou is now technically being able to, deflect or negate what Velasquez is doing. That scenario just does not exist in reality, in my opinion. But like I said, the division needs someone back in it. I think Daniel Cormier is soon to be gone. If Cain is somehow able to catch the fire back and is healthy, that's a good thing for the division. Quickly, what was your prediction on this fight, Fu?
I think Velasquez. I think he'll win. I think Cain will win this fight. I watched a lot of Ngannou's
we're
fights.
Gonna be wrong. We're both gonna be wrong. I can feel it
I
now.
know.
The second you said, "Oh yeah, I'm picking Velasquez," I'm like, "Oh no, now we're both wrong."
Well, so I watched a bunch of these fights, and to me, even saying that Ngannou wins, he's just so inconsistent that, like you said, if you get a semi-healthy Velasquez like Cain, if he comes back semi-healthy, he's good for the heavyweight division, right? Because he can compete at that top level.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, I don't know that Ngannou can. Like every time I think he's been at that level, he's been beat, right? He's been beaten.
It was just interesting because, like, with Ngannou, you have, like, the Curtis Blades situation where Curtis Blades actively showed that he was a top 15 guy, right? And Ngannou comes out in a rematch with him, which no one really wanted, but they gave it to it. And I think a lot of people thought, oh, Curtis Blades has improved so much, he's going to out-wrestle him, right? And Ngannou comes out there and in 30 seconds just obliterates him, right? Like, when you have that sort of power and that sort of freak explosive athleticism, man, especially with, again, it's heavyweight. I mean, we know this. It's with any sort of combat sport heavyweight division. Like, it's not the most talent-rich division usually. So if you're anything above average when it comes to any meter, whether it's power, athleticism, speed, whatever it may be, you're instantly in a ratified air, so to speak, or rarefied air. And I think Ngannou, just based off of that power, the athleticism, and he does have some really good timing. He doesn't have, I think, the boxing skill that I would like him to have. Like, if you put, like, Juno dos Santos' boxing skill in Ngannou's power and frame and build, that would be devastating. He doesn't have that yet. Now, I'm not saying he can't have that in the future. He just hasn't had it yet. But whenever you have that freak timing, that natural understanding of, okay, this is when I should punch. And that's a very basic concept to understand of how to understand timing, but that's what it is. Okay, this is when I punch right now. This is what punch I should do right now. Ngannou has that. His overall game is not round enough for me to pick him against anyone like Cain Velasquez, even, again, a 3-year layoff Cain Velasquez, but hey, this is MMA. I think the fact that me and you, and honestly a lot of people in the media are picking Cain, that's making me worried. That's making me really worried about to see Cain Velasquez look really old, not look good, and Ngannou's going to come out here and just wreck him in a minute. But hey, that'd be fun too.
Well, Ngannou's like really taking it to heart that he's kind of going in as the underdog too. Like in all his interviews, he's been pretty pissed off. The thing that I like about like a Cain Velasquez is like he's kind of like a Michael Jordan in the sense like that when he was at the top, it wasn't just like sports talk people or, announcers. It was like other people in gyms with him. It was other heavyweights. It was the whole fighting world was like, oh shit, this guy's a bad motherfucker,
Oh, yeah. Like, it was universally understood that Cain was the baddest man on the planet. And I mean, for a while, we all thought, hey, like, John Jones versus Cain Velasquez, like, that was the fight for a period of time. We all thought John Jones was on his way to clear out 205. Cain looked like he was on his way to clearing out 265. And we all just thought, okay, like, these two guys were going to meet eventually. And look how far away we've strayed from that. Both guys have, honestly, in their own really unique ways. But Kane, man, if he just comes back with 70% of what he had, he beats a lot of these guys still, in my opinion. But just gonna be interesting to see if he can do it.
Yeah, just really injury plagued versus John just being really like, terrible at managing
his life,
personal life.
God damn it. Shout out to the pulsing picograms. But anyways,
pictograms.
Let's get to the co-main event. A fight that I think is going to end in vicious knockout. And a one that I am picking against the grain, but I like this fight. James Vick versus Paul Felder. This is a fight from a technical aspect I'm really intrigued about because James Vick, in all intents and purposes, is such a tall, rangy lightweight. The guy's like 6'1", 6'2", for 155. Just a fucking giant, right? Great jab, like really good leg kicks, like really good setup shots from range. But once you get him on the inside, oh my God. I mean, I always use this metaphor, but it's a very apt metaphor. It's like a newborn baby deer, man. He just is flailing around, has no idea what to do and where his arm should go. It's bad. And on top of that, he's not the most durable guy. Like usually a tall guy that can't fight tall on the inside, if they're durable, they can get away with it, right? They can get out of those moments and make up for it when the fight is at long range and long distance. But James Vick isn't really that guy. Whenever he's faced anyone at top 15 level, I should say, top 10 arguably as well, like maybe throw a top 15, like maybe Francisco Trinaldo at that time was top 15, though I wouldn't put him there. Maybe a Duffy, but again, I wouldn't put him in the top 15. But digressing, I think anytime we have seen James Vick against the very, very top, he has been knocked out viciously and with very similar sequences. Both Benir Dariush and Justin Gaethje both got in on the inside and landed monster hooks and knocked him out. Do I think Paul Felder is going to get on the inside as he wants to do? Because Paul Felder is a fantastic inside fighter, a fantastic Muay Thai clinch expert, in my opinion, especially in the lightweight division. A guy that throws fantastic elbows within the clinch. I think he's going to knock out James Vick with one of those elbows or maybe an uppercut, some sort of hook within the clinch. And on top of that, I think Paul Felder is also the better grappler of the two. Not that James Vick is not a talented grappler, even though he's trained by a alleged / convicted, I forget exactly, rapist, James Lloyd Irvin. I forget his coach exactly in that whole scenario. But he does have some jiu-jitsu props and credentials, but Paul Felder is a much better, more efficient grappler. I'm definitely picking Paul Felder in this fight, even though I've seen a lot of experts, people that I look up to in this industry, pick James Vick. I don't see him really keeping this fight at range for long. I don't see him being able to keep this fight at distance with his jab for a full 15 minutes. Don't see it happening. Your thoughts on this fight, Fugati?
This one was a tough one for me to pick too. I'm going to go with Vick because I think he can keep him at the end of the jab, the end of some kicks, like just keep the distance, win on points. I think he's going to play it pretty safe. I don't think I listened to him on a Hawani's show, and I mean, it didn't sound like he was going in to knock this guy out. You can usually tell when someone talks like they're coming really aggressive. I do think you could be right though, because MMA Canelo, look, Cinnamon, he's got the red beard, right?
I thought you mentioned like a Twitter handle, like I'm like MMA Canelo. No. I'm like, I just got really confused there. Oh, Paul Felder. I mean, yeah, except he doesn't fight, I would say, a lot like
no, not at all.
Canelo. He does kind of look like Canelo. I can see it. Like if Canelo had like the Irish side of his family show up to like the family reunion, Paul Felder is in that group, right?
Absolutely. But I do think that he could end up knocking out Vick, especially after watching like the Gaethje fight and stuff like that. Vic has a tendency to, when he gets in trouble, run straight to the fence, like run straight back.
And then put his hand straight out, wide, chin
Yeah.
up, like
And
real technical, like basic 101 things you should not be doing.
Yeah. So I think if Felder starts landing some good leg kicks, putting some pressure on him, getting to the inside, like it could end early. But I think if Vic does like sticks to the game plan, which should be to fight at range, he's 6'3", I think it actually 6'3" or 4 actually. He's fucking huge for that weight class, it seems like.
He might be 6'3". I don't think he's 6'4". 6'4" is too big. Like God. He's a guy that should move up. He's one of those guys that should move up to 170 just probably because it's healthier for him. And also might have less chin issues at 170. He's not cutting as much weight.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm going to pick Vic by unanimous decision, but I would not be surprised if you're right.
Ladies and gentlemen, this might be the first dissension we have when it comes to prediction. I think it is, Fu, like in terms of like our MMA shows without Rob. Because last one we did was our first one, right? Like UFC 234 was your like debut. And we really only predicted the two main fights. And one of them didn't happen.
Yeah.
And one of them we all got right.
Whitaker had to go out with a, collapsed colon or something, and Gastelum had a ringworm and staph infection and was still gonna fight.
That shit was nasty. It was bursting on his face and oh god, it was disgusting.
Who lets him fight? I don't even understand. Like Australia's commission's crazy.
I wonder if it's Australia that has jurisdiction or the UFC. Because if there's no commission, if there's no local commission, the UFC takes jurisdiction of themselves, right? So, anyways, first dissension of our podcasting venture here, Fu. I'm interested to see who wins. Now we need to start like tallying up.
We really do.
We do, because with like MMA cards, I feel like it's so much easier to keep track of like the fights. We can make a lot more picks, I think, on the card. Like a boxing event. Like think about the boxing preview show we had earlier this week. It was basically, hey, here are the A sides fighting the B sides. Everyone thinking A sides win? Yep, okay, let's move on.
No, these are some tough fights to pick. Like the Calvillo versus Casey fight.
We're getting to that right now. Like I think actually this one's probably the easier one to pick. I think Cynthia Calvillo should win this one rather simply via her top game wrestling. I think she's too good. She's too technically fundamental when it comes to her wrestling game. And Courtney Casey, even though she's always a fun fighter, like she's one of those that she only loses to the very top. She is that perfect gatekeeper / journeyman. Like you look at her losses, they're literally only to people that have been at the top of the sport. But she is a very basic fighter. Like she comes in with wide shots, single shots, powerful shots, but they're single shots. Her grappling game isn't that great, in my opinion. Nothing to really make me think that Calvillo shouldn't be able to get a clear 30-27 scorecard and win via decision. Get a couple takedowns in each round and win, again, via clear decision. One of the easier fights to pick on this card, in my opinion. Also, potentially one of the more boring fights, unfortunately, on the card. Just because I think Calvillo is going to dominate on the ground. On top of that, Calvillo doesn't really have the grappling, or I should say the submission skills, or really the power to be devastating or / dangerous on the ground, like some other grapplers I think that are more that casuals can sort of connect with more. She's more of a true basic 2008 circa boxer wrestler. In a very, again, basic sense. But in this fight, that she should win this one. In the age of Calvillo being a hot prospect in this division, I think that's long gone. I think she just she clearly, in my opinion, has a ceiling, which she has hit. Courtney Casey, though, is below that ceiling. Your thoughts on this, Phil?
Well, I think, I'm going to agree with you, and that I'm going to say a decision. I do think that what's tough about Casey, though, is that she's pretty good at getting out of people's like submissions, and she gets off the ground pretty well. Mm-hmm. she takes it to people pretty good too. So I'm wondering if she's going to be able to handle that pressure for the whole fight. I think you're right though. I'm going to pick. I've struggled with this name, Calvillo.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's going to be a fun fight. I don't think like you, where you think it could be like a boring fight. I think Casey's going to make it a fun fight because everything I saw with her, she's just really scrappy. She's quick. She moves. She's like constantly going. So I think she's got some moments that she'll shine, but and like you said, I don't think she's been submitted by some of the tougher fighters that she's come across either.
No.
So I really don't think that Calvillo will be able to submit her.
And again,
So-
when I said this fight has potential to be the more boring of the card, again, that's more in relative. Like I don't see really any of these fights we're going to talk about on this card in particular as being boring fights. I don't see that happening. James Vick, Paul Felder, I don't see how that's really a boring affair. Velasquez, Ngannou, I don't see how that's a boring affair. Same with the next fight we're going to talk about, Bruce Leroy Caceres versus Kron Gracie. However this fight turns out, it's either going to be one-way traffic, in my opinion. I think Kron Gracie's either going to come out here and be all the hype that he is, being the son of Ricks and Gracie, or Alex Caceres can come out and be like, no, you're a 4-0 guy that fought in Ryzen and have never fought even close to the level of me, even though I'm a journeyman. Caceres is, I mean, he is a, how do you describe a guy like him? Great transitions, great at scrambles, really adequate striking, not good striking, adequate striking. And Kron Gracie, we haven't seen him, really. We haven't seen him at the very top. And that's no discredit to his competition. Kawajiri is a long-standing legend in the division, so to speak, but he's also a far-faded version of that. That's like Ryan Hall beating BJ Penn. How much validity do you put into that win? Kron Gracie beating Kawajiri means rather little to me. Being Alex Caceres actually in today's age means more, surprisingly. I'll be honest. I am picking Alex Caceres in this fight. I know. I'm going to be a hater.
Wow.
I'm going to be a hater, man. I just saw on the Bellator card I was credentialed for with Showdog, with Anthony. What's his name? AJ Agrazam, who's a high-level BJJ guy, highly touted, huge hype, hangs out with the Diaz brothers, right? So he already has a cult-like following just based off of being with them. He put on the absolute worst showing I've ever seen from a debut fighter with a bunch of hype. And it just reminded me Roger Gracie, a guy that had a lot of hype, kind of just fell out of relevancy, looked bad whenever he was put up at the top. Kron Gracie has not shown me anything yet to make me think he can beat Alex Caceres. So why would I believe that? Just because his name is Gracie? And because, 10 years ago, Kron Gracie was one of the hottest names in BJJ? No. I'm sorry. This is 2019. It's not going to happen anymore where that name alone grants you access to our acceptance. I'm sorry. Now, if Kron Gracie comes out here and styles on Alex Caceres, which if Kron Gracie wins this fight, I think it's because he will get Caceres on the ground and he will look levels and levels and levels above Bruce Leroy, right? He'll submit him within 30 seconds. It's going to be, like I said, one-way traffic. If it's the opposite, we're going to see Kron Gracie be stuck on the feet, look out of his depth, Caceres styling on him, throwing spinning shit, and every time Gracie tries to go for a takedown, Caceres is going to scramble out of it, get to his feet, and get out of there. Now, I will add to the fact that Caceres is so quick to the scramble, so quick to put himself in dangerous position to get out and to get on top or to get back to his feet. There is massive opening for a guy like Kron Gracie to take advantage. I just don't know if he will put it together in this moment in the UFC debut at 4-0 against a guy that's literally had an entire career in this division, in the UFC. A lot of things to sort of, again, a lot of X factors about this fight that it makes me question this pick, but I'm picking Bruce Leroy. Fu, your thoughts on this fight? Are you picking with the Gracie clan? Do you think the Gracies are coming back in force?
It sort of reminded me of maybe like the Mason Menard fight for Lopez, or like maybe like the Diego Magdaleno. Like, it's a big step up. I think
Diego's probably closer. Yeah.
Yeah.
As a comparison.
So, and obviously I don't think Kron's on the level of like a Lopez yet, because he's just not. I mean, just 4 fights in, it's never really done much. Especially, I think this is his first UFC fight.
Yep.
So I mean, he's ranked just shy of like being over 100. I think 96 or something. And this guy's like 60, I think 60 something. So, man, it's like we talked about with Adesanya and Silva. You know, when you've had a bunch of fights, when you've been in some bad positions, you've had to work your way out of them, that there's no way to make up for that experience.
Yes.
Right. So if, like you said, if he gets in quick and he gets the guy down and he's in kind of his comfort zone, it could be bad. But I think if Caceres just keeps him on his feet, moving around, controlling the ring, controlling the space, it's going to be a really long night for Kron, and he's going to look really bad. Because I think he'll just get stubborn and keep going for takedowns and going for takedowns. And I just don't know that they've ever. I mean, it's like one of those things where has MMA progressed past that just like brilliant BJJ guy being able to go in and dominate. And
it has.
Feel like,
yeah. And that's a conversation that's been had like probably 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Like, I think it's been a while now where like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like being that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ace and then coming over to MMA without really anything else, that's long been gone as thinking like, oh, that you're gonna go far. That might be actually the worst base to have right now. Like if you can pick to be like a ultra high level kickboxer, ultra high level wrestler, ultra high level BJJ guy, like which one would you rather be and then transition over to MMA? My last pick would be BJJ at this point. Because think about this, like you can find really good instructors, really good gyms for BJJ, probably anywhere nowadays, right? So you can supplement that training at a rapid pace, much more so than wrestling. To transplant like collegiate level wrestling experience, you can't do that in an MMA gym usually when you're coming up. If you can't sort of replace being a world champion kickboxer and having 60 pro fights in that realm. Like that is experience that is so hard to replace by just being a BJJ guy, then going to a big MMA gym, and then training with the boxing coach, and then training with the wrestling coach. Like your path to success is so much longer, in my opinion, nowadays than those other two, because everyone right now has a pretty good jiu-jitsu game. Like I don't know what it is. Like it just seems like the basic defensive skills to defend arm bars, triangles, rear naked chokes. Like everyone has that now. Like all the tricks are known. The complexity to striking is still not there in MMA. That's why a guy like Israel Adesanya can come in and really take advantage of the middleweight division, because he is so far above the average level of MMA striking, while his wrestling isn't. His wrestling is probably on average. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game, probably on average right now, let's be honest, from what we've seen. So, anyways, digress from that rant. Kron Gracie, Alex Caceres, I think we're both in unison or unanimous picks here with Bruce Leroy beating Kron Gracie. Is that right? Fu?
Correct.
Wow, we're going to both go on that ledge. Okay.
What I will say is it'll catapult him in a lot of people's minds if he comes in and really dominates.
Oh yeah,
you know,
absolutely agree with that. Like we have a new contender almost in the featherweight division. And if Conor Gracie comes out here and just styles on Bruce Lee, where like I think you fast track Conor Gracie if he styles on Alex Caceres. You give him, who would you give him? Maybe like a Korean Zombie, or like somebody of that nature who doesn't have really dominant wrestling, but good striking, a veteran in the division, guy that's maybe fought for a title, someone of that nature. That's who I think you'd probably go with next. But anyways, Brian Barberena versus Vicente Luque, a fight that I think, again, sort of like on the Cynthia Cavallo fight, one of the easier fights to pick in my mind. I think Vicente Luque is just better in every category than Brian Barberena. Like Barberena might be like tougher, like he may be able to be a little more scrappier, so to speak. But Vicente Luque is far a better technician. I think he's a better athlete. I think he's a better cardio tank. Like he should win this one by far, in my opinion. Your thoughts on this fight, Fugatti?
Dude, this Luque guy or whatever, Luque?
Yeah.
Monster puncher. Holy hell. I think he'll knock this guy out. Like for sure. But he's like Barberena is like super tough. Like he hangs in there in a lot of fights. He takes a lot of punishment. He can do his thing. But I think it's going to end in a KO. I really do think and this seemed like from when I was researching it, it seems like a fight where it's kind of like this is the win he needs to get to where he wants to go as far as contending for belts and such. So I'm picking Luque as well. The guy, he doesn't look like a monster either, but he knocks people out like crazy.
Yeah, it's fun. They're both fun fighters. That should be a really fun fight. That could be a sleeper for like fight of the night in my mind. Andre Fili versus Miles Jury, a fight of two guys that once upon a time were really relevant people in the division. Now they're both sort of fighting to get back into the top 15, so to speak. I think this one's relatively easy to pick as well. I think Miles Jury should win this one. I think he's the better striker of the two. I think he's probably the better wrestler, better grappler of the two. Andre Fili doesn't, in my mind, have any sort of advantage over Miles Jury, maybe the more natural featherweight. So, like, cardio may be less of an issue for him. But in my mind, I really see Miles Jury just being able to outpoint him at range. Anytime they do get in a scramble, I think he's going to come out on top and just rather simply win a 30-27, 29-28 scorecard, and be a fun back and forth competitive fight. But again, Miles Jury should win this one not rather easily, but he should win this one. I think the consensus should be that amongst the MMA community, in my opinion. Fu, your thoughts on this?
I'm just gonna pick against you. I'm going with Philly.
Really?
And by by a stone cold stunner. And I mean, I don't really know on this fight. It's kind of a toss up to me. Neither one of these guys, I mean, like you said, they're kind of past their prime. I think trying to make their way. So it kind of go either way. It felt 50-50 to me, but these guys better than I do. But I'm just going to pick the other guy.
Hey,
so we can just have a difference of picks here.
Hey, I've been worse before on picks, so if Andre Fili wins, I picked far worse anyways. Jimmy Rivera versus Aljamain Sterling, a fight that I am actually really, really excited for, I will be honest. I think both guys could easily win this fight. It's a fight that I've gone back and forth on like who is the favorite. I mean, I think Jimmy Rivera is probably the better traditional wrestler of the two. I think he probably is the heavier-handed of the two as well. Might be the better technical striker, though Aljamain Sterling is obviously the more creative one of the two. Aljamain Sterling may be also the more explosive, more dynamic grappler as well. A fight, and I mean, both guys have been knocked out. Both guys have been, beaten really bad. Like, it's not like we have a case of like one guy is undefeated and we've never seen him struggle. We've seen both guys struggle. We've seen both guys stopped relatively quickly as well in fights. So this one could go in a myriad of directions, in my opinion. Like, I could see this fight ending in 60 seconds via knockout. Like, I could see, one of them landing a amazing shot, flush, boom, it's over. Or I can see a 3-round war. I could see a grappling domination from either one. It just depends on which style wins out at the end of the day. This is, in my opinion, the hardest fight to pick on the card. I'll be honest. I'm picking with my heart a little bit. I'm picking Aljamain Sterling. He's a guy that, like, his place in MMA history is going to be odd. Because the period of MMA free agency, like, free agency became a huge storyline within the community. Aljamain Sterling was one of the few people that started that historic era, trend, whatever you want to call it, that led to guys like Benson Henderson leaving to go to Bellator, guys like Eddie Alvarez going to the UFC, like a lot of back and forth. Phil Davis, Ryan Bader, like the guys that we talk about being relevant players now, where they are in terms of MMA promotion was started by a guy named Aljamain Sterling. I think people commonly forget that, and it should be talked about more often, that this is a guy that went out as a free agent when no one did that. That was an uncommon thing. Like, fighters didn't fight out their contract. I know for maybe Fu, you don't understand that happened, or the boxing fans that listen to the show, that they don't understand that that's a thing that happens, especially when boxers are all free agents, it seems. Like, they all think that that's an obvious thing that's smart to be a free agent, to leverage your power and, whatever drawing power you have. Aljamain Sterling was one of the first people to fight out his UFC contract on a winning streak and then go into a negotiation bidding war between Bellator and UFC. He was one of the first ones to really do that. So that's probably why I'm picking him, because I've always been a fan of him. Just due to that, I was like, yes, ballsy move. The guy was like a prospect at the time. Got a huge contract at the end of the day because of it. Ended up losing like his next 2 fights. Really sad. But digressing from that really negative aspect of the story, Aljamain Sterling, in my opinion, should be able to deal with the conventional wrestling of Jimmy Rivera. I think he's the bigger one of the two. Obviously, I think he's the stronger one of the two. And whatever striking advantage Jimmy Rivera will have, I think Sterling is now getting savvy enough when it comes to transitioning from striking to grappling and defense to offense, that he will be able to negate Jimmy Rivera and be able to optimize his game plan. So I'm picking Sterling in this fight. Long-winded story. Done now. Fu, your thoughts on Sterling versus Rivera as our last fight we're going to break down on this card in particular, and then we're going to get to the Bellator cards this weekend.
Well, I'm definitely going with Sterling. Both of these guys have been knocked out by the same person, right? Moraes. I think Sterling's had like 2 fights since he came back, and won his last one a little better than Jimmy Rivera did. So I think that he's just probably in a little bit of a better place. It looks like he's really, the things that I think he looked really bad on in a couple of his fights, the ones that I watch now, like, it seems like he's getting a lot better with his kickboxing and stuff. So it looks like he'll be able to control this fight pretty well. And he'll probably, I don't know if it'll go to decision, maybe a submission, probably a decision though.
Yeah.
Neither one of these, most of their wins are decision. Both fighters.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is a clear like 29-28, maybe split decision.
Yeah.
Like the second and third round are gonna be really close. That's how I'm feeling it. First round is gonna be clear, Aljamain Sterling. But like the last 10 seconds, Jimmy's gonna like land a really hard shot and rattle him, and like the momentum's gonna shift. But we're still gonna give Aljamain Sterling the round. And the next 2 rounds are gonna be ultra competitive, really close. Jimmy's gonna have moments. Aljamain's gonna have moments. Gonna be a lot of scrambles. And some really heavy shots landed. That's sort of my prediction on, sort of the nature of the fight and how it goes. But let's get to these Bellator cards, because they have 2 full cards this weekend. First one this Friday, tomorrow, on DAZN / Paramount Network. Matt Mitchum versus Sergey Karatanov. And what else on the card as I'm scrolling down? Logan Sterling, a real amazing prospect right now. I definitely want to watch him if you're listening and you don't know who these guys are. Watch Logan Sterling. Fantastic collegiate wrestler, now undefeated MMA prospect. 9-0. They've been building up real top rank. So Fu, you're gonna love that. Give him like 9 nobodies to really start it off.
Just smash them.
Yeah, that's how you do it. Also, Paige Van Zandt's husband, Austin Vanderford, also on this card. For any of those that care, I don't. Eduardo Dantes on the card, former Bellator bantamweight champion. I like to see him fight. Always a fun fighter. So shout out to him. But the main event, Matt Mitrione versus Sergey Karatanov. Matt Mitrione should win this one via knockout. First round. This should be quintessential heavyweight MMA of a really basic but big, fast heavyweight beating a old, faded, much better technical heavyweight. That's sort of my perception on this fight. And this card, which really is not that great, and reminds me of why does Bellator keep doing this, where they put 2 different cards on the same weekend when one of the cards is severely weak, because this card is weak. And they could just put all of this on one card and consolidate their financial sort of expenditures. But Fu, your thoughts on Bellator 215, the whole card, top to bottom, all that stuff. I know you want to talk about like maybe Amanda Bell versus Amber Lebrook, the fight of Ambers.
Who the fuck is that girl? No, I'm just playing.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
No, I think Mitrione, right? You're right. Mitrione is. It just looks like one of the fights where they're just gonna throw him in there with an old dog and let him kind of look good and get some kind of name recognition, right? So, I mean, this card to me was maybe a little boring. I don't want to shit on it. I mean, all these
no, this card is not good. No, this card's not good. Like I'll be honest, I'm gonna watch for the. This is gonna be on background Friday night. I'll be doing 2 other things, but this will be on background. And when Logan Sterling is up, I'm gonna watch. When Eduardo Dantes is up, I'm gonna watch. When in the main event, I watch for Matt Mitrione to get the knockout, because I do like watching Matt Mitrione fight. But I mean, it's pretty clear that this is a bad card. Like this has been sort of a debate, so to speak, in the MMA community, is which card's better this weekend, right? Is it the Bellator card or is it the UFC card? Even a good friend of the show, Jason Burgos of Sherdog, who's a kind of a Bellator fanboy. I will give him that. Like, he's a guy that always interviews the Bellator guys, so I think he has an affinity for it. No shots at you, Jason, but that's how I see it. He was saying like, "Oh, Bellator cards far better." I'm like, no, Bellator cards not better. Now, had they somehow combined it, Matt Mitrione's also on the MVP Daily card, which we're going to get to. Logan Sterling is on the undercard, not a co-main event. You sort of piece it together where it's now a full-fledged top-to-bottom card. Maybe we have that discussion then. But let's get to the Bellator 216 card, MVP versus Paul Daly card, or I should say main event, like I said, which seems to be the people's main event in MMA, because MVP has been talked about for so long, it seems, and now this is that fight. This is the fight to determine what do we have with MVP and Paul Daly. Do we have, or I should say MVP specifically, do we have a rising transcendental potential star, creative genius in the cage, or do we have a pretender that's been masquerading, beating up old guys and guys that don't belong in the cage, and now he faces a legit top 30 guy, perennial top 15, 20 guy in the division that is credentialed, talented, and we're going to see the levels displayed. Fu, I want to get your thoughts on this main event in particular, and again, more from a general aspect before we get to the technical matchup. How hyped are you for MVP Paul Daly? Has this hardcore fight reached your casual ears, and are you now hyped for it?
Well, you kind of put me on Michael Venom Page just when we were first talking boxing, because he does both. So I watched a bunch of his stuff, and he's just such a showman. It's really fun to watch him in the ring. Paul Daly seems a little bit more reserved, you know, a little bit more serious. I don't know if it's serious, but just more like stoic.
Well, it's funny because like Paul Daly was like the MVP before MVP. Like he was the loudmouth Brit. Like he was the first guy that did that. Like he was like 2007-ish, right? You had Michael Bisping and Paul Daly. Like those were the two Brits. They were loudmouth. They were brash. They talked a bunch of shit. Like Paul Daly got fired from the UFC and was never allowed back because he punched a fighter or a ref after a fight. It was Josh Koscheck because Josh Koscheck was mouthing off and out-wrestled him for 3 rounds. So Paul Daly got up, whacked him. Never came back to the UFC and went on to Strikeforce, had the Nick Diaz rivalry. I don't know if you've seen that fight, Fu. You have? Oh my God, Fu.
I'm gonna have to watch that.
Fu, you haven't seen?
No.
Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, this is what it's like talking to a casual. It's okay. Like there's importance here. Hardcores out there, like these are the people we have to reach out to, and tell them the history of this sport, because he doesn't know Nick Diaz, Paul Daly, and the most epic 1-round fight of all time. Okay, I'll send you links after the show. Don't worry. But
send me links.
I just need to calm down from that. The fact that you don't know.
Send me location.
Like that. I'm not gonna say that single-handedly like created the Nick Diaz myth because that's just a real gross hyperbolic statement. Like if anything, Diaz probably more the Takanori Gomi and Robbie Lawler knockouts. But digressing.
You're such a stan.
Oh, I am. But digressing. Paul Daly, he's stoic in this one, I think, in comparison. And I think he wants to play that role as the elder statesman now. Like that, he understands that's his role in this matchup. Like WWE antics. Like Michael Venom Page is going to be the one that's going to be loud and it's going to be in your face. You don't need to be that. He is going to be that. So you have to be something different. You have to be the foil to that. Be the old stoic veteran. I think that's what he's trying to do.
Gotcha.
But anyways, digressing. Back to your points because I think I brutally cut you off and went on this tangent.
No, that's fine.
MVP Daly, your overall thoughts in this fight, sort of intriguing you in any way?
It definitely intrigues me because I think I think Michael Venom Page is one of those. He's like an Adesanya, you know. He's very entertaining. He's got a lot of charisma. He does like super crazy shit after fights, like throw Pokemon balls at people and. You know, so to me that's hilarious. Like he's a true showman, you know, and so I think, are we doing our pick or you just want to talk about the fight?
I mean, you can make your pick. You can do whatever you want, Phil.
I mean, I'm gonna pick him over Daly. Yeah. So I don't really feel comfortable saying knockout, but I think that I think that he'd win a pretty easy decision against Daly. He's very, very good. But he's also, watching his fights, not always defensively responsible.
Really? You don't say.
So maybe. Who knows?
Hey, Fu, let me tell you this. Prince Nassim wasn't always defensively responsible. Didn't know if you knew that.
But
Anderson Silva, not always defensively responsible. I don't know if you knew that. Israel Adesanya, not always defensively responsible. But anyways, that's just to make jokes because that phrasing was hilarious. Michael Venom Page should win this fight. I'm making jokes, but I'm in agreement with you. I think this is sort of a change in the guards fight in a lot of ways for UK MMA. Michael Venom Page not only I think is obviously the better striker of the two because he vastly is, but he's also far bigger. Like he's taller, rangier by a significant amount. Like he's nearly like 4 or 5 inches taller than Paul Daly. Like he's nearly half a foot bigger than this guy.
Daly also looks beaten just in the way he's dealing with Venom Page. You know, he won't even look at him or like face off or anything. Like he's really being, I don't know, just kind of a bitch in this whole thing, sort of, you know.
Fu. Yogi, I do have to get that soundbite. You're absolutely right about that. Fu, say in the chat when
How
you're on the
convenient
show.
is that? What is that?
You don't know. You don't. Never mind. I'll get the soundbite, Yogi. Don't worry about that. Fu saying chat. What is wrong with the phrase defensively responsible? You know, you could just say it on the air. It's not that the phrase is wrong. It's that it's Captain Obvious. It's like, yeah, we know that. Like it.
Not to an MMA casual. It's not.
You watch one highlight reel of Michael Venom Page, you know that this guy doesn't have a high guard and is deflecting and parrying shots. You know, he's not trying to look like Canelo out there defensively. Prince Nassim, Anderson Silva is what he's trying to go for. Roy Jones Jr. even, in a way. But even then, I would say Roy Jones far more defensively responsible than Michael Venom Page. But again, Page should win this one. I think he's the better striker of the two. I think Daly doesn't really use his wrestling to his advantage. And in this fight, he would need to. On top of that, it's a 5-round fight. I think we're going to see Venom Page get into cruise control and start picking him apart. And third or fourth round, I think he's going to get him out of there. I don't think he goes the full 5. I don't see that happening. But I do see Page being relaxed in there, being composed, and also understanding, hey, I got time on the clock. Like, I'm going to keep jabbing him. I'm going to keep kicking him with the leg. I'm going to keep picking him apart until I'm done with him. I see that really shaping up. I see the fight shaping up in that manner. Moving on, Vitaly Minakov versus Czech Congo. Vitaly Minakov, once upon a time, being one of the biggest heavyweight prospects in the sport. Bellator champion, etc. And then obviously he had the 2-year layoff due to contract dispute, so to speak, because he left Bellator, went to a Russian fighting league for a huge mega deal. Now he's back, and speaking of all that, it looks like, not that, wrong news, people. Sorry about that. This is the news I wanted to show you. It looks like the former Russian manager to Vitaly Minakov is now suing Vitaly Minakov and Ali Abdelaziz. Hashtag where's Noah. Also, Minakov and obviously Czech Congo have fought before. One of the last fights Minakov actually went to decision. I think it is the last fight he went to the decision with. I think Minakov should win this one, even with the 2-year layoff. I think he's a highly, highly skilled talent. A guy that if he's in the UFC, he could be doing something. But obviously he's dealing with legal issues now. He's dealing with managerial issues. And Ali Abdelaziz is not like the most trustworthy guy to be around now also. So God knows what's next for Minakov. But in terms of this fight, he should win this one rather easily. He's the better wrestler, better striker of the two. And Czech Congo is a faded, boring, nut-kicking version of himself. So I don't want to see this rematch to begin with, but we have it. Your thoughts on Vitaly Minakov coming back and fighting Czech Congo in a rematch, Fu?
Minakov will win this, I'm pretty sure. Both of them have a good, I think Congo's on a 7 or 8 win streak. Minakov is obviously undefeated. So I think Minakov will win. Congo is a name I know. So I know he's an older UFC guy, right? He's been around a while. So
guy has like 50 plus fights, man.
Yeah. So I knew immediately when you sent me this card and I saw Czech Congo, I was like, I know that name, which means he's been fairly big at one point and a while back. So
damn, Czech Congo, this guy's crazy, man. Like the lot, he's like a fucking cat, man. He has 9 lives. He's on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fight win streak. Has not lost since February of 2015. He hasn't lost in 4 fucking years, man. I don't know how to deal with that information. Like, how is that possible? And like he beat Alexander Volkov like in that time span. Alexander Volkov like is doing really good over in the UFC right now. It's crazy, man. Czech Congo. How the fuck is he still relevant?
I don't know. That was what was tough about this, because you look at they're both fighting at a very high level. So, but like you said, even with both of them at a high level, say 5 years ago, it went to decision and, Congo was beaten. So, even with the layoff, I still think, Congo's not coming out ahead on this one. But I think it's going to be a good fight.
Yeah, I think it should be fun, especially I think Minikov is a fun fighter. Like Czech Congo, not a fun fighter. Minikov, a fun fighter. So hopefully we get more of that than Czech Congo's usual, again, nut-kicking self because, God, there must be a record for like most groin shots done in the MMA fight. Czech Congo is the leader of that. He has done more groin shots than anyone in MMA history. I'm not sure if that's true, but it's probably true. Roy Nelson versus Mirko Krokop. One of those fights where I'm like, if this was 10 years ago, maybe Jason would have an argument for this card being the better card of the weekend. But it's not. 2019, we really don't need to see this fight at heavyweight or any weight, really. Who am I going to pick? I'm going to pick Mirko Krokop because Roy Nelson has looked like such garbage as of late. And Mirko's taking some good steroids, probably, in my opinion. So that's how I'm leaning. That's really all I have for this fight. Again, one of those fights 10 years ago I would be hyped for because it is a rematch of their fight from about 10 years ago, which was a fun fight. This one, not so much. Don't care about it. Fu, your thoughts on it?
I'm going with a heart pick. I'm going with Nelson.
God.
I like him. I think he's, I don't know. I like Nelson. Vicious KO. No, I'm just playing. I don't really know how it'll end, but
this fight's
going to a huge scrap.
Oh no, this fight's gonna be the full distance, all 3 rounds, and it's gonna be very, very bad.
Just a lot of like heavy breathing.
A lot of heavy breathing, like a lot of leaning on each other. This is like there's no way this is good. The only way it's good is if it ends within 60 seconds. If it's outside 60 seconds, oh my God, people, watch out. Eric Silva versus Yaroslav Amosov. Amosov being undefeated. Mainly why I'm picking Amosov because Eric Silva has been irrelevant for years now, and he was once a great prospect out of Brazil. Not so much 2019. I'm picking the Russian prospect who I haven't really seen before because he's undefeated, and Russians kick ass because that's what usually happens. Your thoughts on this fight, or do you have no thoughts on this fight?
I have no thoughts on this fight.
Okay. Last fight on the card, and last fight we're going to talk about of the night. Then we'll get to some news, a little bit of news, and then head out here. Call in 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. If you want international, add Mixed Combat Radio on Skype. If you want to call in, get your predictions and preview live on the show. Last fight we're going to talk about Valerie Loretta, who is a Bellator MMA debut, a karate, or actually a taekwondo Olympic. I think she has a medal. I just forget exactly what medal it is. I think it was silver.
I'll find out.
Yeah,
she's kind of a phenom, right?
Yeah, definite phenom, and obviously quite attractive. Huge social media following, partially due to that, and her Olympic pedigree. Now making her MMA debut. I think she should win this one because she's fighting someone that's 1-2 I've never heard of, so that's why I'm picking her. But somebody just to keep an eye out because, God knows if 5 years down the line she's the next Ronda Rousey. Who knows? I think MMA is in the search of the next female star because right now there really isn't that superstar in the female class right now. Maybe Valerie Loredo is. Fu, did you find that information, or are you
pulling it up right now?
Oh, damn! Still taking all this time. Damn.
Well,
watch. I start clicking some buttons, and I beat you to it.
Possibly. Wiki page.
Well, you want to talk about this fight as I look it up since you're not looking it up?
Well, she's, she's obviously being put into this fight to just really look good. So it's mostly, I think, a showcase. So I think she'll win it easily. Because I don't think Bellator brought her in to throw her into the wolves and have her look bad right off, you know? So I think they're going to give her some really easy fights so that she can build that following like she's done on, you know, I mean, like you said, she's huge on Instagram for obvious reasons. And I think Bellator is investing in her, just like you said, hoping that she's the next big MMA star for women. Well, men too. I mean, it's not like men didn't like watching Rousey, but dude, I cannot find. I know that it said when she was like 14 that she was training for the Olympics, but had some family issues and couldn't go in.
I don't think she medaled.
Yeah.
Anyways, digressing. That is it for the fights this weekend. Let's get to some of the news of the day. And kind of a brief touching on again, because Chris Weidman's out on Twitter. You got the Twitter fingers up. Let me get the soundbite up. This is what Chris Weidman feels like right now.
Yeah, trigger fingers turn to Twitter fingers.
That's Chris Weidman right now talking about Israel Adesanya, doubling down on Adesanya being overrated. Weidman going out on Twitter saying, I have now fought 11 fights against top 5 ranked opponents in a row. I haven't won them all, but in my losses, they were all competitive and very winnable fights for me. I love this game and excited about the future. Hold on. Let me get something else here. Weidman also on Twitter saying, or somebody asking him, fancy losing to Israel next? ? Weidman responding, he wouldn't have much of a chance against me. Has he fought a top 5 guy yet? A jiu-jitsu guy? Or a top wrestler? And then somebody asking, what's the point of this tweet? Weidman saying, got a lot of Twitter fingers coming at me about saying Israel is a little overrated. Just my opinion. He hasn't fought one top 5 guy. No top wrestler or a jiu-jitsu guy. Was a minus 700 favorite over Silva. According to odds, after seeing the fight, showed he was overrated. Close fight. Now, Fu, as the resident Israel Adesanya fanboy, defend your man here. While I look up some information that I want to use to also defend Israel Adesanya. So your thoughts on Weidman, Adesanya, the beef that's seemingly brewing before us, and how obvious it seems that Weidman is angling for a Adesanya fight, right? Like, that is clearly what the angle is. But again, your thoughts on this?
Well, yeah. So it sounds very reminiscent of like the older guy that hasn't maybe had the career he wanted. Like, I mean, Weidman obviously is not like, a slouch or anything, but just kind of hating on the dude who's getting some shine, very reminiscent of, I think of like the way some fighters in boxing treat like a Anthony Joshua with his like, crazy paychecks and they're just hating on him because, he's never fought anyone, even though like he's fought multiple times in the top 10. Weidman seems to be trying to position himself for like probably a big pay-per-view fight. He's just obviously talking shit about the new kid on the block that everyone thinks is very exciting, because I mean, he's kind of like that dad taking his kid to like Little League Baseball or something, when he didn't really make it himself. So he's kind of hating on the other guy. So
quickly, I looked up what I wanted to look up. I wanted to briefly remind myself, like, who had Weidman fought before he fought Anderson Silva for the title, right? Like, who was his top 5 name before he fought for a belt? Let alone like Israel Adesanya, who people are trying to prop up and face Weidman. Weidman saying like, why should he fight me? He hasn't faced one top 5 guy yet, right? Like, that's the argument Weidman's projecting here, right? Like, fundamentally, that is his argument. Like, why should Adesanya fight me? Why should I fight him when he hasn't fought any top 5 guy I have? He's not even champion. I'm trying to put that in perspective here. He's not champion. And that's his angle. It's like, he hasn't fought anyone. Why should I fight him?
Yeah.
So again, bring it back. Weidman going into a championship fight with Anderson Silva. He was 10-0 at the time. The best names on his resume was a Damian Maia and Mark Munoz. Damian Maia had just lost to Mark Munoz. And Mark Munoz obviously was never a title challenger, never fought for a belt. So how really good was that win? So again, Chris Weidman, you really out here saying that Adesanya can't fight you because he hasn't fought anyone that's in the top 5 yet, even though he's fought Derek Brunson, who's a top 15, top 10 guy. Anderson Silva, still a top 10 guy. Like, that doesn't matter, obviously. And he's, 16-0, like 15-0. Fought Brad Tavares, who's a top 15, 20 guy. But no, he can't fight you, and you're a, maybe a top 5 guy yourself, Weidman? Like, are you even in the top 5 anymore? It just seems such a weird stance to take. I think Weidman, like you said, I didn't want to take such a negative stance about this because I like Weidman. I think he's a nice guy, but it does reminisce me of that just like old, bitter sports athlete who's talking down on the younger generation. You can almost transplant that to like musicians. Like you see the same sort of effect with musicians. Like the older generation always shits on the younger generation for music. Same with sports. That's what this seems. It seems like, oh, a guy has come up and beat a guy that you beat. He's getting praised for it, and you want to downplay him. You want to downplay his accomplishment. Instead, when really Weidman should be bigging him up. Say, yeah, Adesanya may be the next future, but he has to come through me first. That should be the angle. Set up that your fight is so big. Maybe it's you get a main event at MSG again, Weidman, and maybe this time you don't lose it this time, you know? Every time you get that MSG card, you've lost. Maybe this time you won't.
There's probably also a hint of I beat Anderson in a way that he didn't beat Anderson, so he's a hype job. My win was better, you know. But I mean, the guy's got he's 1-4 in the last 4 years.
Quickly, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but Yogi in the chat saying not the same. Silva beat everybody. He was just the next man up. Speaking of Weidman getting that shot against Anderson. Again, I'm not saying Adesanya should leapfrog everyone and fight Whitaker. That is not what I'm saying here. I'm saying he should fight Weidman or Jacare. Those are probably the 2 best matchups for him. Why can't he fight Weidman? Weidman's not a champion. There's no next man up in this scenario. Like, we're not in boxing. This is the UFC, right? Like, this is why it's different. If that's not the question here, if Weidman wants the tune-up, then I'm okay with that. But then don't come out here on media and social media and talk greasy. You can't do that. You can't do both. You can't talk greasy and then say, well, he doesn't deserve to fight me. Homie, you just got knocked out in your last fight. You're not the champion anymore. What fucking right do you have to say, oh, he can't be fighting me? Like, that's ridiculous. That's what again, the analog is not 1-to-1 here, Yogi. Like, Weidman did not fight a top 5 guy leading into a title shot. The argument here is that Adesanya does not fight a top 5 guy going into a Chris Weidman fight. Those are 2 very different things now. But Fu, any thoughts on this, on my ranting, or Weidman, Adesanya, the fight, whether it should happen? Do you want it to happen? Do you like the beef so far?
I mean, yeah, I think we want to see Israel Adesanya against like all of these guys, right? We want to see what he's really made of. You know, let's get the ball rolling. But I mean, in sports, I really hate, and even in music, I don't like when the old head just shits on the young man that's like trying to make his way, you know. And so it just came off really poor form to me, because I agree with you. Like, why not build him up and make that a really good fight? You know, it's not like Weidman's just running through everyone. He's only beat Kevin Gastelum, and he's 1-4 in the last 4 years. So
yeah, like he really doesn't have a lot of room to talk right now, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Adesanya, struggled with one of the best, if not the best, fighters
And
in UFC
again,
history.
struggle is such a relative term you're using now for that fight.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
we used to play a lot more competitive than most, but like a lot of people inside the industry like don't think it was as competitive as we thought. Like they thought it was a clear like 2-1 decision. Like maybe that won. Like Adesanya showed up for a lot of people's mind. Like he's without a doubt real. Like he's a contender. He's not a pretender. I think the framing of it's odd, and especially from Weidman, who has always been a rather nice guy. I mean, he has some moments like where he's, gone a little more aggressive. But usually speaking, he's always been the nice guy. And I think with Adesanya, he could be the nice guy. That could be his angle. Like, again, I'm always thinking about like branding. Like, how do you promote yourself? Weidman's not the heel in this matchup. Adesanya is the heel. You know what I mean? Like, if you're Weidman, you be ultra nice. Make Adesanya be the bad guy, and that's still gonna sell more. And it's just weird to me. I hope a guy like Matt Serra or Ray Longo corner him and be like, hey, why are you doing this? Like, get off social media. Like, if you're gonna talk about Israel Adesanya, big him up. We want that fight. Like, there's no reason we shouldn't want that fight. But anyways, digressing. Let's get to the last couple topics of the day, then head out of here. Valentina Shevchenko's little sister, Antonia Shevchenko, versus Roxanne Modafferi, targeted for UFC Russia. Love that fight. Love that matchup. And also Shevchenko, the younger, is looking to be a really top prospect. And last story of the day, Artem Lobov, the GOAT, as some call him, in obviously a very ironic way, has signed with Bare Knuckle FC. Debuts against Jason Knight, who just left the UFC as well in April. I'll be honest, have not watched a single one of the Bare Knuckle FC cards. None of those shits. I probably continue will not. But I know we have a listener base that might care about that shit. So, hey, Artem Lobov coming to a pay-per-view near you probably for a Bare Knuckle card. Yeah. Fu, any last thoughts on these last topics or anything in the MMA world?
I think, a Shevchenko coming into the mix is always good, for women's MMA. Sister was super dominant, obviously. The Artem Lobov thing is kind of cool because I think he got a pretty good deal from the Bare Knuckle FC.
Probably.
And I believe that they have left it open for him to sign to fight on other promotions,
like MMA promotions specifically.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's probably going to do pretty well for himself with that. This seems pretty smart. I haven't watched any of the Bare Knuckle FC stuff either. If anyone in the chat has, I would love to know if the fights are good. I don't really know any of the people over there, but should look into it, I guess.
Don't. I discuss it because it's Artem Lobov and he does numbers. I'm being honest. I may clip this and put it out just for the numbers. Just being honest. I'm not going to watch a single one of these cards. I do have a threshold for violence. I do. For entertainment wise, this isn't it. Bare Knuckle, not for me. I'll admit, it's the one time I can actually understand the argument some boxing fans have, oh, MMA is too violent for me. It's okay, cool. MMA is just as violent as boxing. And it's oh no, Bare Knuckle? Yeah, I understand the sentiment now. I understand the argument. But anyways, digressing from all that, let's wrap up the show here, Fu. Last final thoughts of the show, overall thoughts on the fights coming up this weekend, all that fine stuff. And obviously, social media, where can people find you?
You can find me at Fugatti_MCR on Instagram or Twitter. I'm excited about the fights this weekend. I think we got a lot of fun stuff to watch. I'm trying to make sure I'm home in time on Saturday to be here with you and hopefully Rob this weekend. Even though it seems like the UFC cards.
Rob won't join up this weekend. Rob's sick with
a lot of boxing though.
No, hold on. We were going to do a boxing show today, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, we're supposed to do a UK hour today. But Rob's deeply sick right now. He's deathly sick. He has the flu. He's dying. Prayers and condolences to him and his family. Just kidding. He'll be fine. He'll be back like probably a day or two. But no, Rob's going to take the sick weekend. There's no big boxing for him. Yeah, we're not going to hear from Rob till Sunday.
He's just ducking this work because he knows everyone's coming for his Hearn Stan ass with this Miller fight.
Hey, man, I'm not the one that said it. You did. Anyways, final thoughts. I, like you, I can't wait to see the fights this weekend. UFC card, top to bottom, looks interesting. MVP versus Paul Daly, like that's all I need from Bellator. Give me some other stuff like a Vitaly Minikov coming back. I'm excited. And plus, obviously hit the like button, share the show, subscribe, share the show. If you're listening on podcast as well, hit that 5-star review. Write the review out. We read them on the air. What else? Patreon.com/Mixed Radio. Go support the show with any financial contribution. $1 a month to whatever gets you extra shows per week. UK Hour, Boxing Banter, Championship Rounds. We have a new podcast coming out that's completely non-combat sports on Patreon. A ton of stuff to go consume and get entertained by. But anyways, I'm Matt the Hipster Hunter. You can find me at Matt Hunter MCR. All platforms. Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it is. Matt Hunter, MCR. Have a great night. Peace.